8 signs you have an extremely rare personality. In the individual is contained the whole world, Carl Jung once said, reminding us that true power lies not in conforming, but in uncovering the uniqueness within. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we explore 8 rare signs that you possess an extraordinary personality, one that not only stands apart, but carries the potential to reshape the world around you. If you've ever felt like you see life differently, like your thoughts and energy don't quite match the crowd, this message might be the reflection your soul has been waiting for. As you listen, ask yourself, which of these traits have I been hiding or doubting in myself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know which sign resonated most with you. Let's journey inward together. Sign 1, emotional depth that others can't comprehend. You feel everything so deeply, it almost aches. The highs are celestial, the lows earth-shattering. And while others might label this intensity as too much, Carl Jung would call it emotional sophistication. Your emotions aren't random waves crashing in. They're intelligent, precise instruments tuned to the hidden layers of reality. While most people operate on surface logic, you navigate the world like a deep sea diver, sensing undercurrents that others can't perceive. You pick up on the slightest shift in tone, the energy behind someone's silence, the sadness beneath a smile. It's not that you're dramatic, it's that you're attuned to truths most people are too numb or distracted to notice. Jung believed that emotions are the voice of the unconscious, and when you feel something intensely, it's your psyche offering a message that transcends words. But here's the conflict. Society doesn't know what to do with this kind of depth. It prefers things tidy, controlled, predictable. So you are told to calm down, stop overreacting, toughen up. You learn to suppress the very qualities that made your soul unique. And yet, what you suppress doesn't vanish. It festers. Jung warned that what you resist persists. When you ignore or invalidate your emotions to meet someone else's comfort level, you fracture your inner world. You start to believe your emotional truth is a liability. But in reality, it's your compass, your strength, your gift. Your emotions are not just reactions, they are revelations. They expose wounds that need healing, boundaries that must be honored, and lies you've outgrown. This emotional clarity makes you rare. It means you don't just feel, you interpret, you transmute, you evolve. Most people spend their lives chasing numbness, avoiding discomfort, and calling it peace. But not you. You sit with the storm until it tells you why it came. You don't escape your emotional pain. You turn it into meaning. That is power. That is the path of the differentiated soul. Carl Jung spoke of one who is not trapped in shallow conformity, but awakened through feeling. You are not unstable. You are not overly sensitive. You are someone who has the courage to feel what most people run from. You are the emotional alchemist, turning ache into awareness, chaos into clarity. The very thing others mock in you is the thing their souls are starving for. Your emotional depth is not just valid, it's vital. And the sooner you stop apologizing for it, the sooner you step into your full strength. If this resonates with you, share your experience in the comments below so others can feel seen too. And if you're just beginning to embrace your emotional depth, comment, "I honor my feelings," to join this journey of self-acceptance and inner wisdom. Sign 2. You question everything with unrelenting curiosity. You don't just accept what you're told, you dissect it, question it, feel it, and then ask again, not because you're difficult, but because something within you refuses to settle for half-truths. You crave something deeper, something real. While most people are satisfied with the surface, you want to know what lies beneath the mask. Carl Jung called this psychological gift the transcendent function, a bridge between what is and what could be, between the conditioned mind and the awakened one. And that's exactly what makes you spiritually rare. Your mind doesn't stop at the obvious. It stretches beyond, seeking meaning where others find comfort in ignorance. When you ask why, it's not to rebel, it's to reveal. You carry what Jung called prophetic consciousness, a kind of soul-level intelligence that sees the invisible, senses the future, and knows what others deny. That's why your questions often unsettle people. They feel exposed, not because you judge them, but because you mirror what they're not ready to confront. And still, you keep asking, not out of pride, but purpose, because your spirit knows that awakening doesn't come from silence, it comes from sacred disruption. You are spiritually encoded to sense what's misaligned, what's hidden behind the words, what's real behind the role. Even when others are speaking, you're listening with your soul, catching the subtleties they don't even know they're revealing. This makes you a spiritual detective of sorts, but also a mirror that many are afraid to face. People may have told you that you're too much, too intense, too curious, too serious, but in truth, you're just tuned to a deeper frequency. While the world praises those who conform, you've always known that truth lives outside the lines. This knowing often leads you into loneliness, but it's a sacred loneliness, the kind that prophets, visionaries, and deeply feeling souls have always known. You are not just looking for answers. You are calling lost truths home. That's not a flaw. That's a spiritual mission. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming that kind of person, spiritually awake, relentlessly curious, and unapologetically intuitive, means learning to trust your questions more than others trust their answers. It means understanding that your discomfort with shallow thinking is not a weakness, but a compass pointing you toward deeper wisdom. You were never meant to fit into systems built on denial. You were meant to wake them up not with noise, but with clarity. Your thoughts are not just thoughts. They are sacred instruments of spiritual evolution. So when others misunderstand your need to go deeper, when they label your insight as intensity, remember, you were never here to play small. You were here to see clearly, ask boldly, and live truthfully, because that is what rare souls do. If questioning everything is your way of seeking deeper truth, you're not alone. Carl Jung believed this was the mark of a prophetic mind. If this resonates with you, comment below. I choose truth to affirm your path of inner clarity and courageous curiosity. Sign 3. Fierce independence, born from psychological survival. You didn't become independent because life gave you ease. You became independent because your soul had no other choice. This is not the kind of independence that comes from ego or rebellion. It's the kind that grows in silence, shaped by pain, refined by solitude, and forged through every moment you had to stand alone without falling apart. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the psychological journey of becoming whole, by confronting your shadows, healing the unconscious, and integrating every fractured part of the self. And for souls like yours, this process wasn't optional, it was necessary. You didn't just choose to be strong, you had to be. Life never gave you the luxury of leaning too long on anyone. Every betrayal taught you boundaries. Every disappointment taught you clarity. Every silence taught you how to hear your own voice over the noise of the world. That's why your independence is not hard. It's sacred. It's not defensive. It's grounded. And that's why you don't seek others to complete you. You connect with them by choice, not desperation. But here's the hidden truth. This kind of wholeness confuses people. It draws in the deeply loving, the awakened, the wise, because they recognize your stillness as strength. But it also lures in the unhealed, the manipulative, the ones who subconsciously crave the calm they haven't earned. You become a mirror. To some, that reflection is inspiring. To others, it's threatening. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need fixing, chasing, or proving. You don't fit the mold of the wounded man or the emotionally absent one. You are present, but not dependent. Intimate, but not needy. Loving, but not available to chaos. This makes you magnetic. But it also means you must be even more discerning, because the rarest souls attract not just admiration, but also projection. And you've likely learned that not everyone drawn to your light wants to rise with you. Some only want to borrow your fire without feeding their own. That's why this rare personality is not a role you play. It's a frequency you carry. You've outgrown the games of validation and performance. You're not chasing love as a reward. You're choosing connection as a reflection of your inner state. You don't need permission to be yourself, because you've already faced the storms inside you and survived them with your integrity intact. And while others may misunderstand your stillness as aloofness or your solitude as arrogance, you know better. Your soul has been through too much to explain itself to those who haven't yet asked deeper questions. So you walk with clarity. You speak with purpose. You give from overflow, not emptiness. And in doing so, you live as proof that the most powerful men are not the loudest, but the most integrated, the most self-aware, the most sovereign. Because the rarest souls don't need to dominate to feel whole, they simply are. If this message resonates with your journey of becoming whole, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Has your independence come from survival or choice? Let us know. And stay tuned as we explore sign number 4 together. Sign 4. Intuitive awareness. That borders on psychic. You possess a sensitivity so profound it almost feels otherworldly. An intuitive awareness that borders on the psychic. You don't just read facial expressions or body language like others do. You feel the unspoken, the repressed, the hidden vibrations of those around you. When you enter a room, your soul picks up on emotional tension, inner conflict, and silent despair before a single word is spoken. This isn't imagination, it's perception. Carl Jung, the legendary Swiss psychologist, recognized intuition as one of the 4 fundamental psychological functions. He believed that some people are born with an extraordinary ability to perceive patterns, truths, and emotional realities beneath the surface of everyday interactions. If this is you, you've likely spent your life sensing things others can't explain, feeling when someone's smile is a mask, or when a quiet voice carries the weight of unspoken trauma. But with this gift comes a shadow, Without strong psychological boundaries, your intuition becomes a double-edged sword. You begin absorbing pain that isn't yours. You attract people who want healing, but aren't willing to do the work themselves. You start to notice that in every group, every relationship, you're quietly assigned the role of the emotional caretaker, the unofficial therapist who's always available, always understanding, always listening. And slowly, without realizing it, your energy starts to drain. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but the danger is becoming who everyone else needs you to be." You can't pour from an empty cup, and the more attuned you are to others' wounds, the more disciplined you must be in protecting your own soul. This level of intuitive awareness is not weakness, it is spiritual intelligence. But it must be honored with boundaries. You must learn to say no without guilt, to walk away without explanation, and to protect your sacred inner world like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Your energy is not a community well for others to draw from at will. It is a divine resource, and without practices that ground and replenish you, solitude, meditation, movement, journaling, sacred silence, you risk being consumed by what you've been called to witness. Jung often spoke of the collective unconscious, the deep reservoir of shared human experience and symbols that intuitive individuals can access. That's why your knowledge feels ancient, why you can sense something off, even when logic says everything's fine. You're not just picking up on surface moods. You're tapping into the invisible matrix that connects all souls. This is why protecting your energy is not selfish. It is sacred. You were not born to carry everyone's sorrow. You were born to awaken to your own light and to walk with clarity through the fog of emotional chaos others cannot yet name. Your intuition is a sacred compass, but it was never meant to lead you into constant self-sacrifice. It was meant to lead you home to your truth, your peace, your center. If you resonate with this deep intuitive awareness, comment below. I honor my energy and trust my intuition. And if this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. There's more powerful insight coming your way. Sign 5. You crave meaning over social acceptance. You can't fake meaning, and you can't pretend your way through life when your soul is starving for truth. Carl Jung discovered that certain rare individuals suffer deeply when they abandon their inner truth. He called it neurosis, not just anxiety or depression, but a profound spiritual wound caused by living a life that goes against your authentic self. And if you're someone who has ever tried to fit in, to follow the crowd, to silence your questions just to be accepted, you know exactly what that feels like. It's a kind of emptiness that no amount of social approval can fill. You're not driven by the applause of the world. You're driven by something much deeper, a hunger for purpose, truth, and spiritual alignment. That hunger doesn't let you rest in shallow waters. It pushes you to seek depth, meaning, and conversations that actually matter, even when that sets you apart from others. Because in a society obsessed with surface, you crave substance. You've always sensed that there's something more to this life, more to yourself, more to why you're here. And you've noticed how easily people trade their authenticity for comfort, how they hide behind roles, masks, and polite silence. But that never worked for you. Every time you tried to pretend, You felt it in your body, in your energy, in your mind, like your soul was quietly begging you to stop betraying it. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to see what others don't see, feel what others are afraid to feel, and speak what others are too conditioned to say. That's not a flaw. That's your spiritual gift. And yes, it might make you feel like an outsider. But outsiders are the ones who carry the blueprint for inner revolution. People may call you intense or complicated, but what they're really seeing is your refusal to settle for half-truths. You don't chase shallow success because it doesn't feed your spirit. You're not here to impress. You're here to express yourself, your truth, your vision. That's why you're drawn to solitude, to depth, to the uncomfortable beauty of growth. You're here not just to live, but to awaken. And with that awakening comes a kind of loneliness that few talk about. But it's in that sacred space of solitude that your clarity sharpens. It's where your soul whispers, "This is who you are. Don't forget." Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And you're awake. That's why small talk drains you and superficial relationships bore you. You crave something real. You crave something spiritual. So every time you felt like you don't belong, every time you've questioned why you see life so differently, understand this. Your perception isn't broken. It's expanded. Your emotions aren't weaknesses. They're messengers. Your search for meaning isn't a detour. It's your soul's true direction. You weren't made to follow the map. You were made to draw your own. Keep choosing your truth over their approval. Keep choosing your path, even when it's not popular. Because for people like you, authenticity isn't a luxury, it's survival. And in that brave, beautiful alignment with your spirit, you're not just living, you're becoming. Did this message resonate with your search for truth? If so, comment below. I choose purpose over approval to affirm your path, and let's keep exploring what it means to live authentically. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of this journey. Sign 6. You've outgrown people and environments that once fit. You've changed, and because of that, everything around you feels different. The people who once felt like home no longer understand you, and the environments that used to nurture you now feel suffocating. Carl Jung called this transformation a psychological death and rebirth, an inner evolution that demands the old version of you be laid to rest, so the truest version of your soul can finally rise. Growth brings grief, not because something went wrong, but because you've outgrown everything that was only meant to serve the man you used to be. You can't go back, even if you tried. And as painful as that might feel, it's also sacred. You've stepped into a space where the illusions of belonging no longer hold power. The friendships that relied on your silence begin to fade. The conversations that once kept your attention now feel hollow. You begin to see that it wasn't them that changed, it was you. The old soul within you finally stopped shrinking to fit what was never built for your expansion. This kind of growth doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It moves in quietly, with a deep inner knowing that your path is diverging. It doesn't need explanation, only acceptance. And in that acceptance, you find yourself walking through a season of isolation that isn't meant to harm you, but to refine you. Loneliness becomes the furnace where your authenticity is forged. Jung believed that such souls who wake up to their truth and refuse to go back to sleep are rare because they choose resonance over familiarity, purpose over performance, and truth over comfort. You stop searching for people who remind you of your past and start attracting those who reflect your future. But this doesn't happen instantly. There is a space in between where everything feels uncertain, where you grieve not only who you lost, but who you used to be. That grief is real. You mourn the version of yourself who tolerated less, stayed quiet to keep the peace, and wore masks to be accepted. But now your soul demands freedom, and freedom always comes with a cost. The cost is the distance that forms when you stop entertaining what drains you. It's the silence that falls when you no longer perform for validation. It's the stillness you sit in when the phone doesn't ring like it used to. And yet, that stillness becomes sacred. That space becomes your sanctuary. And from there, something shifts. You begin to meet people who speak the language of your soul. You find environments that support your expansion. You feel peace that doesn't require approval. And you finally understand that outgrowing is not rejection. It's realignment. It's the soul remembering its original design. So if everything familiar has begun to fall away, take heart. Your evolution is not a crisis. It's a calling. And the man you're becoming is far too rare to be understood by the world you've already outgrown. If this message speaks to where you are right now, say this with faith. I release the old with love and welcome the new with trust. I'm ready for the next chapter of my growth. Sign 7. You offer profound presence in a distracted world. In a world that's constantly performing, chasing, and escaping itself, your presence doesn't just enter a room, it shifts it. Carl Jung called this rare capacity psychological holding space, the profound ability to sit with another person's raw truth without flinching, judging, or interrupting. It's not about saying the right thing. It's about being the quiet force that allows another soul to feel seen in their entirety. And that is precisely why people gravitate toward you. They sense something in you that most cannot offer. Safety without condition, stillness without pressure, love without performance. But here's the hidden cost. This kind of soulful witnessing, when done without boundaries, can become a silent sacrifice. Jung warned of what he called helper syndrome, the unconscious pattern where the one who heals ends up drained, depleted, and invisible. You give so deeply that you slowly erase yourself in the process. You become everyone's grounding center, yet lose your own footing. Your compassion turns into a doorway where others walk in freely, leaving muddy footprints on your energy, unaware that they've taken something you cannot easily replace. And still, you stay. Because your soul was built for depth. But even depth has limits. Jung reminded us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that includes knowing when your gift is being misused. Not everyone deserves your presence. Your energy is not charity. It is sacred currency. Setting boundaries does not mean closing your heart. It means guarding your essence so that it doesn't bleed out into hands that only take. Boundaries are not barriers. They are blessings. They are not rejections. They are reminders that your presence is earned, not owed. Loving wisely is the next evolution of loving deeply. So you must begin to discern who genuinely honors your light and who simply seeks its warmth without ever carrying fire of their own. The souls who are meant for you will never require your exhaustion. as proof of your care. True connection does not drain, it energizes. You were not meant to be the background in everyone else's healing. You were meant to be whole, to be still, to be radiant, to be respected. Don't forget to subscribe for more wisdom on protecting your energy, setting soulful boundaries, and offering your presence with purpose, not depletion. Your gift is rare. Let's learn to honor it together. Sign 8. You sense a larger purpose. You can't yet define. You've always felt a quiet pull towards something greater, something you couldn't quite define but could never shake. It wasn't ambition in the traditional sense. It was something far more spiritual, like a whisper from deep within, urging you to rise beyond the surface of life. Carl Jung called this phenomenon the archetypal calling, a deep psychological and spiritual urge that moves your soul toward transformation. It's not just a feeling, it's your inner compass guiding you toward truth, authenticity, and your highest self. When you ignore this calling, life starts to feel flat, even suffocating. You might feel a heavy fog of anxiety, a dull sadness, or an aching sense of meaninglessness. That's not weakness. It's your psyche rebelling against a life misaligned with your deeper purpose. Jung believed that people like you are not ordinary. You bridge rare vessels through which unconscious wisdom is made visible to the world. You don't just live a life, you embody an awakening. And whether you know it or not, your very presence sparks something in others. You're not here to fit in. You're here to tune in, to rise, and to evolve. That's why ordinary goals never satisfy you. You don't crave shallow success. You crave meaning. You crave the sacred. You long to serve something invisible, yet powerful, something that calls your soul instead of feeding your ego. And even when you don't have the full picture, you feel the pull anyway. That is spiritual intelligence at work. It knows what your conscious mind has yet to catch up to. This journey may isolate you at times, but it also strengthens you. It breaks you open to a deeper way of seeing and being. As you walk this rare path, your pain becomes wisdom, your questions become guidance, and your life becomes a living prayer for the evolution of consciousness itself. In a world that tells you to chase certainty and comfort, you choose depth and discovery. That is your gift, and it's what sets you apart. The spiritual lesson is this: your longing for something greater isn't a flaw or a phase. It's your soul remembering its assignment. You are not lost. You are being led. And the more you trust that invisible thread, the more you become what you were always meant to be. To affirm your connection to this deeper calling, declare your alignment with it. Comment below, "I am a bridge of awakening," to honor your purpose and inspire others to step into their own unseen destiny. Thank you for joining us today on Spiritual Wisdom. If you resonated with any of these signs or saw parts of yourself reflected in this rare personality, know that you are not alone. Your uniqueness is a gift to the world. Embrace it fully. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more thought-provoking insights. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos on Carl Jung, spiritual growth, and the deeper truths of the soul. Until next time, stay aligned and keep shining. Why you'll never please everyone, and why you shouldn't even try. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where we explore timeless truths for a more conscious life. Today's video dives into a liberating truth. You were never meant to please everyone, and trying to do so only distances you from your authentic self. Jung understood that constantly chasing approval is a sure path to inner conflict, not peace. If you've ever felt drained trying to be what others want you to be, this message is your wake-up call. Let's break free from the illusion that being liked equals being fulfilled. Are you ready to honor your truth instead of performing for acceptance? Comment below. I choose authenticity. And let us know how this resonates with your journey. 1. People-pleasing is not kindness, it's self-abandonment. People-pleasing is not an act of kindness. It is a subtle and dangerous form of self-abandonment. Many of us were conditioned early in life to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, and to seek approval as a way to stay safe, loved, or accepted. But what begins as a survival strategy quietly becomes a cage. You say yes when you mean no, smile when you feel uncomfortable, and shrink yourself to make others feel more at ease. In doing so, you trade authenticity for acceptance and slowly begin to disappear. You start to believe that being good means being liked. But Carl Jung, through his spiritual wisdom, warned us, goodness without wholeness becomes a mask. And that mask, if worn too long, becomes your identity. Saying yes doesn't make you noble. It makes you invisible. It makes you tired, drained, and resentful. Because every time you betray yourself to gain approval, you teach the world that your needs are optional, your time is flexible, and your silence is consent. What most people don't realize is that people-pleasing is not rooted in love, it's rooted in fear. The fear of being disliked, the fear of rejection, the fear of confrontation. Jung called this a form of shadow behavior, a hidden part of the psyche that pretends to be virtuous while secretly feeding on insecurity. And when you live from that shadow, you may appear cooperative, but deep down, you're abandoning your soul. This habit creates an emotional imbalance. You might find yourself overcommitting, avoiding conflict at all costs, or constantly second-guessing your choices. You become hyper-attuned to others' emotions, but disconnected from your own. You live your life as a reflection of what others want you to be, not as an expression of who you really are. Spiritual wisdom reminds us that the soul was never meant to be passive. It was meant to be powerful, clear, and honest. There comes a point where your nervous system starts to rebel. You wake up anxious, not because of your schedule, but because you filled your life with obligations that drain you. Your body feels tired, not from activity, but from carrying the weight of unspoken truths. You try to rest, but rest doesn't reach the kind of exhaustion that comes from living out of alignment with your core. This is not just emotional fatigue, it's spiritual fatigue. When you stop trying to please everyone, you begin to reclaim your boundaries. You start recognizing that not every request deserves your yes. You realize that your peace is too expensive to be sacrificed for temporary harmony. You understand that disappointment is not something to fear. It's often a sign that you're finally choosing yourself. And when you do, the right people remain, the wrong ones fall away, and your energy starts to return to you. Carl Jung spoke often about individuation, the journey of becoming whole. That path cannot be walked while you're busy managing how others see you. True spiritual wisdom calls you to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. The assertive part, the honest part, the part that knows your worth and speaks your truth even when your voice shakes. Wholeness requires that you stop apologizing for existing. It demands that you stop bending to fit into places your soul has outgrown. Let others misunderstand you. Let them be uncomfortable with your boundaries. Let them talk. Because in the end, you're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be real. And the price of people-pleasing is far too high. It costs you your identity, your energy, your voice, and your purpose. When you begin to honor your truth, you stop living on the terms of others and start living on the terms of your soul. Have you ever caught yourself saying yes, just to keep the peace, even when your soul whispered no? If you've broken free from that cycle, share your story in the comments to inspire others. If you're just starting to reclaim your voice, comment "No more self-abandonment" to mark the beginning of your healing journey. Let's grow together. 3. Repression leads to emotional distortion and burnout. Repression doesn't make you virtuous. It makes you vanish. The longer you silence your truth, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. When you constantly suppress your voice, ignore your needs, and collapse your boundaries just to keep the peace, you're not being sensitive or caring. You're building an emotional prison. That's why what starts as compliance soon turns into quiet suffering. You smile while feeling hollow. You agree while your heart screams no. You show up, but it's not really you who's there. It's the version of you that others find easy to love. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted. But when that mask becomes your identity, you lose touch with your soul. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung once said, is to become who you truly are. Yet, how can you do that when every part of you is filtered through what others expect? Repression doesn't just rob you of joy. It distorts your emotions. It turns unspoken truth into anxiety, buried needs into resentment, and unexpressed boundaries into exhaustion. You're not overwhelmed because you feel too much. You're overwhelmed because you're not allowed to feel anything fully, truthfully, and without shame. Take Sarah, a hardworking woman in her 30s. She's the dependable one, the helper, the one who always says yes. Her coworkers admire her. Her friends think she's so low maintenance. But behind closed doors, she's unraveling. She can't sleep. She has migraines. She feels invisible in her own life. She doesn't even know what she wants anymore because she spent years bending herself to meet everyone else's needs. Like many of us, Sarah was taught that being good means being agreeable. But Carl Jung warned us, repression has a cost. What we push down doesn't disappear, it festers. It becomes the shadow that sabotages our health, our joy, and our relationships. And no, this isn't about becoming selfish. This is about becoming real. About reclaiming the space you've given away in silence. When you say no without guilt, when you express a need without apologizing, when you set a boundary and honor it, you're not rejecting others. You're honoring yourself. You're teaching the world how to treat you. Because if you always act like your time, energy, and emotions don't matter, people will believe you. Repression is not kindness. It's emotional neglect, self-inflicted, and socially encouraged. It's time we stop confusing emotional suffocation with spiritual growth. Because the truth is, spiritual wisdom begins when you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of fitting in. The people who truly love you won't demand that you shrink. They will rise to meet your truth. Your burnout is not a flaw. Your exhaustion is not a weakness. They are urgent ones telling you that you've been too silent for too long. Carl Jung didn't teach us to be likable. He taught us to be whole. And wholeness means saying what you mean, needing what you need, and refusing to perform in a role that was never yours to play. You don't owe the world a version of you that's easy to digest. You owe yourself freedom. Not freedom through rebellion, but through honesty. The kind of honesty that liberates your nervous system, heals your resentment, and restores your dignity. Not everyone will understand your truth, but that's not the point. The point is that you finally do. Comment below. I give myself permission to feel. If you're ready to stop repressing and start healing. 4. Real love cannot exist without the real you. People often admire the version of you that never makes waves, the one who always says yes, keeps the peace, and avoids conflict at all costs. But the truth is, that version of you isn't real. It's a carefully constructed mask you've learned to wear, one that keeps you liked but never truly seen. You become agreeable, not because it's your nature, but because somewhere along the way, you were taught that being liked was more important than being whole. And so you shrink. You silence your needs. You nod when you want to speak. You smile when you want to cry. And you say yes when your soul is begging for a no. Carl Jung called this the danger of living through a persona, a false self that exists only for social approval. And when you live like this long enough, something painful happens. You lose touch with your own truth. You forget what you want. You forget what you feel. You confuse acceptance with love and silence with peace. But deep down, there's a quiet voice that whispers, "This isn't who you are." That voice is your soul, and it's begging to be heard. The moment you start listening to that voice, when you begin to set boundaries, speak your truth, and stop apologizing for existing, you'll notice something. People will leave. Not everyone, but the ones who were only there because they benefited from your silence. They weren't in love with you. They were in love with your compliance. The second you stop performing, their affection fades. But don't let that fool you into thinking you're doing something wrong. You're not losing love. You're losing control-based loyalty. And that is not a loss. That is a revelation. Because real love doesn't demand you to be smaller. Real love doesn't wilt in the presence of truth. It grows. It deepens. The ones who stay when you start saying no. The ones who lean in when you show your unfiltered self. Those are your people. They're not attracted to your performance. They're drawn to your presence, to your honesty, to your energy. That is spiritual wisdom. The awareness that the right people don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be real. As you walk this path of self-reclamation, you'll be tempted to go back, to soften your boundaries, to tone yourself down. But remember this: every time you abandon yourself to make someone else comfortable, you teach your spirit that their approval matters more than your peace. That's not kindness. That's self-betrayal. And no relationship is worth the price of your own voice. You were not put here to perform. You were not born to be everyone's favorite. You were born to be free. And freedom has a cost. It will ask you to let go of the love that was never real, the friendships that depended on your silence, the peace that required your pain, But what you receive in return is priceless. Your wholeness, your truth, yourself. The moment you stop chasing validation, you start attracting alignment. You stop begging for acceptance and start embodying worth. This is the shift. This is the awakening. And yes, it can be lonely, but that loneliness is sacred. It's not an absence, it's a clearing. A space being made for something higher, something honest, something built on truth instead of performance. That's where real love begins, with the real you. If you're ready to be loved for who you truly are, not the role you play, subscribe now for more spiritual wisdom on living authentically and letting the right people find you. 5. Individuation is the cure. Become whole, not liked. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. Carl Jung understood that the desire to please everyone is a silent betrayal of the self. The more you try to win approval, the further you drift from your truth. People-pleasing teaches you to exile the most powerful parts of who you are. Your anger, your boundaries, your needs, your passions. It trains you to smile when you want to scream, to agree when you want to say no, to disappear so that others can be comfortable. But every time you abandon yourself for the sake of harmony, you lose the essence of who you are. And no applause is worth that. Jung's solution is individuation, the process of integrating all parts of yourself, including the ones you were taught to hide. This isn't a surface-level self-improvement strategy. It's a deep, spiritual awakening. It means no longer shaping yourself to be palatable to others, and instead, standing in the full truth of who you are. You stop performing, and you start existing. You stop begging to be liked, and you begin to honor your inner authority. Because when you reclaim the parts of you that have been buried, your fire, your voice, your honesty, you become whole. And wholeness is far more powerful than likability. When you choose an individual, you stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "Am I being true to myself?" That shift in focus is radical. It challenges everything you were taught about goodness and success. It demands that you walk away from approval and move toward authenticity. You'll begin to realize that saying no doesn't make you selfish, it makes you self-aware. That expressing your anger doesn't make you rude, it makes you honest. That walking away from what no longer serves your soul is not a failure, it's a spiritual victory. This journey is not easy. It requires you to face the shadow of the parts of you you've hidden to survive. But those shadows are not your enemies. They are your teachers. Your rage might be pointing to a boundary that was crossed. Your sadness might be telling you what you value. Your discomfort might be the beginning of your truth. In spiritual wisdom, there is no light without shadow, no awakening without disruption. You grow not by being agreeable, but by being aligned. And as you walk this path, you will lose people. Not everyone will understand your new boundaries, your new silence, your new fire, but let them go. Because every time you say yes to yourself, you say no to the lie that you have to earn love by shrinking. That is the moment you stop people-pleasing, not because you're bitter, but because you're finally whole. That is the beginning of your spiritual awakening. Do you feel ready to stop shrinking for approval and start becoming whole? If this message speaks to your soul, declare it in the comments. I choose wholeness over approval. 6. Guilt is a sign of transformation, not failure. Guilt is not always a sign of wrongdoing. It's often a sign that you're healing. When you stop living to meet other people's expectations, guilt doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It means you're shedding old skin. For so long, you may have measured your worth by how useful, likable, or agreeable you were to others. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You smiled through discomfort. You made yourself smaller so others could feel bigger. But the moment you break that pattern, guilt surfaces not because you've harmed anyone, but because you're no longer betraying yourself to maintain peace. This is the detox phase of self-liberation. And like any detox, it feels messy, unfamiliar. You might find yourself second-guessing boundaries, questioning your choices, or even apologizing for finally protecting your energy. But guilt in this context is just residue emotional withdrawal from the addiction to being liked. Carl Jung believed that true transformation involves confronting the parts of ourselves we've hidden or suppressed to gain approval. He called this individuation, the process of becoming whole. And that path often leads through guilt, because who you're becoming will threaten the roles you've played to survive. Take the story of a woman named Sarah. She was always dependable, always available, always nice. But inside, she was exhausted. One day, she canceled plans to rest, something she'd never done before. Her hands trembled as she typed the message, and immediately after, the guilt set in. But it wasn't because she had done something wrong. It was because, for once, she chose herself. And that choice disrupted the version of her that others had come to expect. When you stop pleasing people, you stop reinforcing the idea that your time is flexible, your needs are negotiable, and your silence is consent. You begin teaching the world how to treat you not through rebellion or aggression, but through alignment. Carl Jung reminded us that the shadow isn't evil. It's simply unacknowledged. People-pleasing is part of the shadow. It's how we learn to stay safe by shrinking ourselves to fit in, by becoming who others needed us to be. But there comes a point when continuing to betray yourself becomes more painful than disappointing others. That point is your turning point. Let guilt rise, but don't let it lead. Let it whisper, but don't let it decide. In time, that noise will fade, replaced by the clarity of self-respect. Choosing yourself won't always feel good, especially at first, but it will always be good for you. And eventually, you'll look back and realize that guilt was never your enemy. It was just proof that you were finally walking away from who you were never meant to be. If this message spoke to your soul, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. And if you're ready to release guilt and step into true freedom, type in the comments, "I give myself permission to break free." 7. You don't lose everyone. You lose the wrong ones. You don't actually lose everyone. You lose the ones who were never meant for the real you. The moment you stop performing, stop shape-shifting to meet someone else's expectations, and begin honoring your truth, something sacred happens. The dynamics that once felt stable start to shake. Some relationships fall away, but don't mistake their exit as a loss. Those connections were built on the version of you that betrayed your own needs to be accepted, loved, or needed. When you stop betraying yourself, you're not breaking the bond, you're breaking the illusion. Most people aren't in love with your soul. They're in love with your sacrifice, your silence, your willingness to say yes when you meant no, your ability to make them feel safe while you quietly abandoned yourself. That version of you served them, but it was never your truth. When you start showing up as your full self, unfiltered, unpolished, whole, the discomfort it causes in others reveals who was truly connected to your essence and who was simply attached to your compliance. People don't get uncomfortable when you become cruel. They get uncomfortable when you become clear, when your no is no longer negotiable, when your boundaries are no longer bendable, when your energy is no longer available for emotional discounts. That's when the accusations begin. You've changed, you're cold, you're not who you used to be. And they're right, you're not. You've outgrown your own self-neglect. You've stopped feeding dynamics that only survived because you kept your needs on mute. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that authenticity comes with a cost, but it also brings clarity. The clearer you become about your worth, the more obvious it becomes who was never meant to stand beside the real you. And as painful as it might feel, this is grace. It's grace in disguise when the wrong people exit, making room for right-aligned connections to enter. Those who are meant for you won't need you to filter yourself. They won't be threatened by your wholeness. They'll rise to meet it. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when you begin to live from that place, not just think about it, not just talk about it, but embody it, your life starts to reorganize itself. Not because you're forcing anything, but because your energy no longer supports the things that were only attached to your performance. In their absence, there's space. Space for love that doesn't shrink you, for friendships that don't compete with your growth, for peace that doesn't cost your voice. You don't need to be more likable. You need to be more you. You don't need to explain your transformation to those who only love the version of you that made their life easier. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away. Because what you're losing isn't real love. It's the illusion that love requires your self-abandonment. And what you're gaining is everything that was waiting on the other side of your truth. If this message spoke to your soul, type in the comments, "I choose truth over approval." The right people will stay. And if you're ready to honor your real self, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message that helps you grow in truth and love. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Remember, your worth is not defined by how many people approve of you, but by how deeply you honor your own truth. As Carl Jung taught, the path to wholeness begins when you stop performing for acceptance and start living in alignment with your soul. So release the need to please and reclaim the freedom to be unapologetically yourself. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share this video with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more soulful insights. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an awakening moment in our upcoming videos. Stay true, stay wise, and keep growing